Hello, everyone. We're very excited to start this panel, Not Your Keys, Not Your Crypto. I think this is a very important topic to discuss and have some industry leaders really give their insights in terms of how to properly protect your assets, especially in such a tumultuous time in the crypto space. As we have seen with exchanges going down, kind of these black swan events happening, it's even more important to make sure that your assets are properly secured. And so we're going to discuss about the future of securing your assets as well as how to make sure that you currently have your assets secured in a way that is secure but also very easily accessible. So I'm going to allow everyone to introduce themselves, give a little bit of their background, and then also their connection with this specific topic.
Hi everyone, my name is Georgi. I'm the CEO of Orox, and our goal is basically to leverage the data and information that we currently have for our terminal to make DeFi a lot easier. So we've recently released a Web3 wallet that leverages everything that we've done with the terminal to make that user experience as simple as possible, mimicking the centralized exchange look and feel, but being powered through decentralization.
Hi everyone, my name is Paul Poi. I'm CEO and co-founder of Edge. We are a self-custody exchange. Allows you to buy, sell, and trade, access DeFi protocols, and also some centralized exchanges, but while you always keep custody of your assets. You go from fiat to fiat between different cryptocurrencies. We've been building since 2014, so we were a long time established player in the space, and really are trying to make key management within our own app a lot simpler than what you see with hardware wallets and other software wallets. So really bridge the gap in user experience between a centralized service and a full self-custody platform.
Hey everybody, my name is Andrew Durkee. I'm head of Republic Crypto. We're a vertically integrated digital merchant bank, combining advisory, tokenization, token sale mechanics, infrastructure, and treasury management, and wallet products. I've been in the space for over a decade. I was CEO and co-founder of the Coin Tree, the first doing multi-sig security and storage for Bitcoin back in 2011, 2012, and 2013.
Awesome. So to start, what does not your keys, not your crypto mean? And how has the ethos, I think, within the crypto space developed in its early days, and then now as retail begins to start adopting crypto and the trends change, and as we've kind of seen the centralized entities really begin to play a much larger role than in the past?
So Bitcoin started off as being decentralized in nature. It is supposed to be decentralized. Cryptocurrency is supposed to be decentralized, but we've kind of gone 180 and centralized the entire field. There's centralized authorities that are basically taking what cryptocurrency is supposed to be and just changing it completely. So not your keys, or not your crypto, not your keys, not your crypto is basically you need to have possession of your cryptocurrency because you can't trust centralized authorities. That's why Bitcoin was first created. So for us, we want to maintain that our company is never storing any funds on the user's behalf. That's really what cryptocurrency is supposed to be about, and I think that's what companies need to pursue in the future as well.
So not your keys, not your crypto, for us and myself, is really at the heart of why we even care about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in the first place. If you think about it, there are cryptocurrency conferences and events literally almost every single day of the year. But why is that? This is the first time in history that we've ever been able to hold and transact a digital asset without a third party that held your money. Think about that. We've never, ever been able to do that. Hold your own digital value. That's what made Bitcoin compelling back in 2008, 2009. And that's what makes all the other cryptocurrencies compelling. If you take that one core functionality, that one core feature of Bitcoin, and you compromise that, add anything else that you like about Bitcoin or other cryptos, none of that would make it compelling. We would not be here today. You wouldn't have conferences every day. You wouldn't have meetups all around the world, because that was what really made it different. Nothing else is different about it. If you think, oh, price go up, that's the reason why you like a cryptocurrency. If it didn't have that capacity of self-custody, if you couldn't do it, then it's just another commodity like gold. And we've never really had this. This is what's so compelling Now, there's many reasons why there's challenges to doing that. There's many reasons why you should, many reasons why people don't self-custody. But just know that this is the one thing that made cryptocurrency unique. Nothing else really separates the ability to hold your own funds really separates it from any other asset class in the world.
Yeah, not your keys, not your crypto is really a cautionary tale that just continues to build up on itself. I mean, he's right. I mean, really, one of the core ethoses of Bitcoin in its first iterations and crypto in its first iterations was just financial independence and financial freedom, the ability that you could control your own kind of financial path and protect your own financial assets. But as we've grown and as the industry continues to grow and we start to onboard new users that aren't as native to that concept or native to the feature sets necessary to be able to operate in that space, you start to see centralized products come around that on the surface look to be easier to use and look to be commercial products. But the reality is we're still a ways away from having real commercial viability for a lot of these things. We're getting closer and closer, but what you're seeing, because the space is so loud, it's still incredibly small. The Web3 space is very small, but it is a loud space. And so it's able to attract new users. And as these users do come to it, they look for products that are easy to onboard and easy to use and are, for them, more comparable to Web2 products that they're using now. But again, the reality is these just are not commercially viable solutions yet at scale. So whether it's hacks like you see at FTX or your breakdown of different bridges and wormhole hack and a variety of other bridge hacks that we've seen over the past year, this is all scenarios of where we believe something is at a commercially viable state, but it just isn't.
I think one of the we've recently seen that, or at least reports that MetaMask is beginning to collect, or maybe has been, but at least the last few days has been. He sent out an update that is collecting the IP addresses of wallet users. We're seeing a lot of clampdown in terms of control, KYC, overall oversight of crypto assets, of just retail, not even whales or anything. How do you see that playing out in terms of we have kind of the people in the crypto space that have that crypto ethos, that want the freedom, that want the sovereignty, and then you have a lot of these centralized entities that have been very well funded, that are that also have been around for a very early time, but they seem to have been almost co-opted, and co-opted in a way that is not supportive of the crypto ethos. It seems like this is a battle between David and Goliath is the big boy that's trying to control, and David is kind of the people that are just trying to build products that help to push that sovereignty ahead. How do you guys see that playing, and do we see Goliath being able to take over, or is David going to come in and take the day?
Wallet products collect a lot more information than most people think. And the idea that you're anonymous is actually pretty difficult at this point. Groups like Chainalysis and a variety of other products that are being used by law enforcement are particularly adept at tracking these assets. It's one of the reasons that law enforcement is a large fan of Bitcoin and some of the other cryptocurrencies at this point, is because everything is on chain. All transactions are public. All records are kept. So it becomes relatively easy. I don't think the IP issue is actually that big. I think it shakes out for some people, but I think the reality is what the industry is going to find itself is it really in two places. It's going to be highly regulated, large bank-style environments, like whether it's Goldman or JP Morgan or whatever, that are going to be running large exchanges, right? And they're going to be heavily, heavily regulated. And then you're going to have full DeFi solutions, whether that's your Sushi or Uniswaps, but fully decentralized, and there'll probably be nothing in the middle, because the things in the middle are going to be so high risk that you're going to run scenarios of like what you've seen with FTX and other exchanges that have collapsed. So I think you're going to see a bifurcation of the industry that's going to go in those two directions. I think the reality is, though, inevitably, probably the DeFi ends up being the larger component later. But I think right now we're going to see, especially as the pendulum swings very heavy into the regulation format, which from the Republic side, we're particularly big fans of. We're a heavily regulated entity. You're going to see some of the larger groups. A lot of people saw JP Morgan just filed their trademarks for their wallet products. Like, that's all coming now in a highly regulated framework.
So the question was about privacy, and it seemed like that, and the information given up by wallet provider software, and to some degree maybe even centralized services. So one thing I do tell people, if you care about privacy, then for sure, if you're using a centralized service such as a centralized exchange, and also realize that there are some wallets that are fully custodial. They fully hold your funds even though they provide no exchange services. If you use those products, you've lost just about all the privacy you possibly could lose. However, at the same time, if you are using a self-custody product where you own your keys, that does not guarantee that you have a high level of privacy. That service can still collect KYC information if it chose to. Many of them at least collect a phone number and email address. Many of them can associate your transactions that you create with that phone number and email address right off the bat. So if you do care about privacy, look for services or really just software that doesn't collect that information and under the hood is at least open source. You can verify if they say that that software doesn't associate your transactions with any personal info. Now, there's still the stuff that the government can do, IP address analytics, as was mentioned, associating IP addresses to transactions, but at least not a direct association with any personal info. And then as well, if you really do care about privacy, even to another level, which I'm a big fan of a high level of privacy by default and easy, then looking at privacy-based protocols becomes a key piece of that. We're a big supporter of Monero. We were the first multi-asset app to support Monero right out of the box and support trading into and out of it. And then as well Zcash, full privacy mode in Zcash. I think this is actually the future of crypto, are much more private protocols. Much like the internet started very in the clear, very transparent with HTTP. And the government didn't even want us to adopt HTTPS, SSL, encrypted communication over the internet. They pushed hard at banning SSL, and then come 15, 20 years later, they now mandate it. In the same sense, I can't predict that history is absolutely gonna repeat itself, but I'm hoping and lightly predicting that an aspect of mandate will actually start to come with services that are actually transacting very frequently with cryptocurrency, and that they'll need to use a privacy protocol, much like it's mandated for traditional finance. So that really is the one way to achieve a very high level of privacy, somewhat akin to what we already have in the internet. Hopefully that comes true, and you can help contribute to making it coming true by actually using some of those protocols itself.
You mentioned MetaMask with the IP logging and stuff. Look, MetaMask is one of our biggest competitors. They dominate 90% of this field. So for me to come out and say this for them and protect them against some of this claims is a big deal. So with MetaMask, they don't have any other option but to at least log your IP addresses. It's just how the websites, how servers work. At all times, they're able to see your IP address. So you connect to the internet, they can see your IP address. If anything, if we're gonna say anything about MetaMask, the fact that they inserted that clause in their privacy policy now means that they were always doing that because they had to in general. It just depends on how much logging is going on behind the scenes. Just the fact that you were connecting to their RPC URL, well, you were already being tracked. Your IP address was already being logged. So if anything, there's probably a class action lawsuit that could potentially be brought against them for not having that in the first place. The only way to go against that, in order, if you're using any type of wallet out there, is actually running your own node, which is fairly difficult. If you're using any type of RPC URL out there, those servers are seeing your IP address, they're seeing your address that you're transacting with, and that's just how it is. If you really want to maintain privacy, like it was mentioned just now, is using privacy-based protocols. If you want to transact on the Ethereum network, you still need to, you'd have to basically run your own node, and even your own node is going to log your IP address somewhere, and then you have to clear that out. So I think in the future, the privacy protocols are probably going to be more of a niche type of situation where people that are extremely deep into crypto are going to be utilizing, whereas the general public, I mean, the general public is using Facebook and tracking everything about them. So the general public just doesn't care that much about their privacy. They'll say they do, but at the end of the day, they want to use a service because of whatever functionalities that it has. With Facebook, it's obviously social media. With Web3, we're hoping that it's going to be the automation and the transparency and the openness of these protocols and being able to do whatever you want with your money. Privacy is a huge forefront, and security is a huge forefront for Aurochs, but at the end of the day, when it comes to the general public, the masses, basically, it's really going to be that use case of the product itself.
With the fall of FTX, we've seen sentiment shift pretty dramatically towards decentralization and against a lot of these centralized entities. We're seeing a lot of fear for a lot of these exchanges not having the assets that they claim to do. The proof of reserves is really coming out in a very strong way, even if a lot of it seems to be just smoke and mirrors. Do you think this sentiment and what has happened with FTX and with, I think, potentially other exchanges, is that going to have a really deep impact in the ethos and the personality of crypto as it continues to develop? Or do you just see this as a minor blip and we continue moving towards kind of a very centralized space?
The FTX situation basically now has put us in as an industry, has put us in a huge hole. The fact that they were leveraging these celebrities and everything else has lost credibility within the general audience out there. So the only way to fix that issue is for companies to be a lot more transparent and a lot more decentralized. If the general public knows that your funds are safe on their own computer and they're able to access them at any time, as long as the internet works, that trust can be brought back into the crypto field. So we're in this pivotal moment as an industry where we need to hold centralized authorities accountable. They need to be regulated just like any other centralized authority is, and hopefully see a more dynamic shift to decentralization and allow transparency to take place throughout the entire industry.
I've been in the space since 2013, and I've seen these issues come up over and over and over again with every cycle and in between cycles. The issue of having a centralized service compromised, whether internally or breached, and people losing funds. And what seems to happen is the people that are currently in the industry that are well connected, that go to the events, go to the conferences, they do learn, and they internalize those events and try to use services that don't put them at risk. Problem is, with every bull market, we 10x the number of people in the industry, and then the new people that enter don't quite have that same to-heart experience that those that were in that cycle experienced. And so 9 out of 10 people are like, oh, great, I'll just use an FTX, I'll just go and use a Coinbase and whatnot. And that creates the massive amount of wealth stored in those services until an issue happens again, we hit another bear market. Those people have now learned, but then we enter another cycle where 10x more people enter. What is it going to take for us to move past that, where the next cycle of people actually start using services that don't have this possibility, that don't have the potential for a contagion? I've been polling a lot of people, influencers, traders, and whatnot, and the few things that seem to repeatedly come up are that we need better user experience, or more decentralized, more self-custody tools. When we get that, we get more liquidity into the system. More people are using it, and liquidity begets liquidity. If that's one thing I've learned about the financial system, is where the money is where people want to be. And so as more people start using it, liquidity improves, prices improve, slippage improves, and now you have a much more competitive product in self-custody than you potentially would have with the current ecosystem that's what I think it's going to take, and I think it's at least been a wake-up call for builders. This is the builders in the space. This is the opportunity, but that opportunity is a very small time slice. So as builders, we need to actually build tools that really bridge this gap while we can before the next bull cycle happens. Get people onto these services, get the liquidity there, and make it where we are contagion-proof come the next bull run. And that's what I'm hoping to do. That's what I'm going to try to contribute. And I hope everyone else here can help assist that effort.
I've been through every crypto winter since the beginning. The big difference between what we're going to see here and what we've seen in the past is the long tail damage and contagion of FTX is going to take a while to unwind. I mean, so much so actually the FTX collapse has really originated out of the Terra Luna fallout. So, I mean, if you track it all the way back to that, the repercussions of these things take months, if not years in some instances, to really shake out. What that means as far as building confidence back, there's really two ways to do that. Regulation is definitely going to be one of the ways, and we're definitely going to see that coming. And then transparency is on the other side. Proof of reserve, which is definitely a buzzword that's come up quite a bit, and you're seeing a lot of different exchanges and centralized entities that are pushing for this idea. By themselves, actually doesn't really mean that much. Like, proof of reserves is one thing. You're not exposing what your liabilities are, and really being fully transparent. The proof of reserves really doesn't matter. The problem is when you expose all your proof of reserves and your liabilities, it's almost like going public at that point. Like, you truly are like basically going public with all your financials, and that's a very difficult thing for a private company to do. But it's almost going to be required. And I think it's going to even take a step further. I think you're going to have to do proof of reserves, exposure of liabilities, and probably also have a third-party audit done by a major entity to go in there and verify it all as well. And if you don't combine all of those things, I think you're going to run into a problematic situation. Even if you do third-party audits, there's plenty of companies that just all imploded that had plenty of third-party audits that were done and still didn't matter because the rest of the transparency really wasn't there. So you actually have to have all three of those columns checked.
You make a good point, and as well, if you think about it, these third-party audits, they're expensive and slow, right? So how much time is there between the last third-party audit to went to the next one, and how much of the funds in an exchange could possibly disappear between then? I don't know if people have read into some of the stories on FTX. Apparently there was literally a button that SBF could push that would transfer funds between Alameda and FTX. So you can have all the audits in the world, but one button can basically wipe out all the funds that are sitting inside of an exchange when there's that much control. That's the kind of thing that you can't get with the true transparency that you get in DeFi and true crypto products that are self-custody.
Yeah, third-party audits right now with like FTX and some of these companies, they're getting third-party audits by auditors that are incorporated in like BVI and some of these tax havens, and they're trying to claim that that audit is, they're showing that audit is foolproof, but in reality, it's really not. Our company is actually planning on going public at the start of this upcoming year, and we've gone through the audits. We've done all the due diligence, everything that is necessary. And to be honest, I mean, we're a small company right now. It's not that difficult for companies like FTX to go through a full-on transparency report, full-on audit from USA law firms and USA firms. It took us maybe about 5-6 months. Obviously, FTX was doing a lot more volume. It would take a lot longer, but when you compare it to some of these bigger corporations that are currently public, that are transacting billions of dollars every single month, it doesn't really take that much effort for a company to force these companies to take those steps. Having like a small dedicated group of people in their the accounting department and stuff to keep track of everything, it's not that challenging for a company that should be making hundreds of millions of dollars a year. It's really not. So the fact that they're not doing it is kind of disappointing. And they're trying to say their proof of reserves is good enough, but their liabilities is not transparent enough for anyone to see. Yeah, they might have $1 billion in their cold wallet address, but in reality they owe $10 billion to their users, and no one knows that, other than sending some audit from some random company across the world that no one has heard of.
And remember, FTX is only 3 years old. I mean, it was like brand new. So there were some red flags there. It was hard to ignore. I mean, we used FTX quite a bit at Republic because it was just a good product. Like they built a robust product. They were also one of the few trading platforms that allowed for cross-margin lending, which was pretty unique. So there's going to be more opportunities. There's going to be more exchanges. You know, people will learn from this. Like you mentioned that this is the time to build. This is my favorite time in the space. Every time we go through one of these cycles, all the best stuff comes out of it. So you know, if you are here in the audience and you are a builder, like this is your time to shine. This is your time to get to work.
So I think the last question, I'm sure there's a lot of people in the audience and those watching the live stream are thinking about, I have my assets mostly in these centralized exchanges or entities. I want to embrace self-custody. And so what advice would you give people that want to really make sure that they're managing their assets and securing them in a way that is best positioned for the craziness that we might continue to see in the space?
This is almost a bit too much of a softball for companies such as us that build self-custody products. But probably the thing that I definitely try out our app, edge.app, but at the same time, probably the one piece of advice is don't go overboard. I think there's too many influencers that try to promote this uber high level of security with split keys and whatnot that intimidates a lot of people and also creates a high level of possible user error. So look for the self-custody products that you feel comfortable with as far as the whole process of key management, because key management is the biggest friction point, and one that I don't think a lot of products differentiate on. You know, that's one that we try to differentiate on. So look for one that has that comfort level, and as you start building up, then you can kind of go to things like the hardware and multi-sig, because just getting it off a centralized exchange is just your first step, and already improves the security of our assets 10x. But make sure it's a solution that doesn't provide like too much rope to hang yourself, because many of them do.
Yeah, definitely look for I agree with everything that you said. The user experience of the products that you're going to be using is going to be the most important thing. Security and user experience are going to go hand in hand. So, for example, some products out there, you can send money into it and then it doesn't appear until you have to do like 5 other steps. And a lot of people that don't know how to do that, they kind of run into problems. They complain that they lost money when it's in reality it's still in their wallet. So look for products that do have a lot of good user experience, that are focused a lot on user experience and security. And then if you want to take the next step, as it was just mentioned, you know, you can go multi-sig routes, hardware wallets, things like that. So just be very careful dabbling into self-custody. Just try to read a little bit about it until some of these friction points are fixed by companies such as ourselves. Yeah, just make sure that you're doing a little bit of research before you jump straight into it.
I mean, it just comes down to the individual. You know, there's a lot of different solutions based off of what your needs. You're balancing risk versus utility. Right? So if you want zero risk, you're probably going to forfeit a lot of utility. Right? So you're going to be sitting in a cold storage wallet product or hardware wallet somewhere. If you're looking for more utility, then you're going to find yourself more in warm or hot wallet scenarios, or some of the more advanced wallets that allow you to move things in and out. So it's just going to come down to what you're looking for and what you're trying to do and what your needs are. Are you an individual? Are you an institution? Are you a family office? And that's really going to come down to understanding what you're trying to do, how you're trying to do it, and then what the right product is to fit that need.
Awesome. Great. Well, this is the end of the panel. Thank you, everyone, for coming, and thank you to the panelists.
Thanks, everyone.